One was the storm. The other was the water. One built to destroy everything in front of him. The other built to make sure there was nothing there to hit. For 50 years, one question has never died. What would happen if the most explosive puncher who ever lived met the fastest martial artist who ever lived? He was a wall of muscle and violence, 220 pounds of controlled detonation, hands that ended fights before the first round was over. A man who walked into the ring already certain of the ending. Opponents lost before the bell, beaten by the fear of him. He didn't outpoint people, he erased them, and across from him stood a man half his weight. 135 pounds, lean, quiet, still. No heavyweight belt, no professional record. Just a body forged like a blade and a mind that had rebuilt the entire idea of fighting from nothing. Where the giant was fire, this man was water. The giant came forward the only way he knew, like an avalanche. Every punch carried the weight to end a life, thrown with a speed that made him a phenomenon, a speed no one his size had any right to possess. But the smaller man was not there, not slower, not weaker, simply not where the fists landed. He flowed around the storm, and the storm hit nothing but air. Because the giant had trained for other giants. He had trained to break men who stood in front of him and traded. He had never fought a ghost. He had never faced someone who refused to give him a target, who turned his own overwhelming power into wasted motion, who redirected an avalanche with the touch of a hand. But make no mistake, this was no easy thing. One punch. That was all the giant needed. A single clean strike from those hands and the fight, the legend, all of it, would end in an instant. The smaller man knew it. Every heartbeat he spent inside that range was a gamble with his life. And still he stayed calm. Still he flowed. Because panic is what the storm feeds on, and he refused to feed it. The giant learned what the great masters already knew. That size is only an advantage against those who stand still. That power thrown at nothing exhausts the one who throws it. That the hardest man in the world to hit is the one who has made himself formless. Round after round in the mind's eye, the avalanche spent itself, and the water never broke. This is why the question has lived for 50 years. Not because we know the answer, no one ever will, but because it is the oldest question of all, dressed in flesh and muscle. The immovable force against the unstoppable calm, raw power against perfect control. And in the end, that was Bruce Lee's entire philosophy, made real in the most extreme test imaginable. It is not about being stronger than your opponent. It is about being so complete in yourself that his strength has nothing to hold on to. The storm rages to destroy. The water moves only to endure. One burns bright and burns out. The other has no shape to break, and so it flows forever. Be the storm, and you will win 1,000 fights. Be water, and you will never truly be defeated. One was the storm, the other was the water. One was built to destroy everything in front of him. The other was built to make sure there was nothing there to hit. For over 50 years, one question has refused to die, whispered in gyms and dojos and living rooms all over the world. What would happen if the most explosive puncher who ever lived stepped into a room with the fastest martial artist who ever lived? Not in a movie, not in a fantasy. Just two men, no gloves, no rules, no bell. The storm against the water. And tonight we are going to walk through it, moment by moment. Let us begin with the storm. Picture a man who was less a boxer and more a force of nature. 220 pounds of muscle stacked onto a 5'10" frame, a neck thicker than most men's thighs, shoulders that seemed carved from stone. But the terrifying thing was never just his size. It was the speed. Here was a heavyweight who moved like a middleweight. Hands that traveled faster than anything that heavy had any right to move. Feet that slid him into range before his opponent even registered the danger. His punches did not just hurt. They ended things. Careers, consciousness, the fight itself, often before the first round was over. And there was something else. He beat men before the opening bell ever rang. They climbed into the ring already defeated, already imagining the ceiling lights above them, already flinching at shadows. He did not outpoint his opponents. He did not dance and jab and wait. He walked forward with total certainty, and he erased them. That was the storm. Now meet the water. Across from this mountain of controlled violence stood a man who weighed 135 pounds. Read that again. 135 pounds, giving up nearly 90 pounds to the man in front of him. He held no heavyweight belt. He had no professional record. By every measure the boxing world understood, he did not belong in the same building. But this smaller man had done something no belt could ever represent. He had taken every martial art he could find, torn each one apart, kept only what actually worked, and thrown away everything else. His body was not bulk. It was engineering, forged through hours of relentless training every single day, a physique built like a blade rather than a hammer. He could throw a punch in a fraction of a second, and at the center of everything he believed was a single dangerous idea: become water. So the two of them stand in the dark, and it begins. And the giant comes forward the only way he knows. Like an avalanche, the first punch carries enough force to end a life, thrown with impossible speed. It is a perfect punch, and it hits nothing but air. Because the smaller man is not there. He is not faster than the punch. He is simply not where the fist arrives. A small turn of the shoulder, a half step, a shift of the hips, and 90 pounds of advantage sails harmlessly past his head. The storm swings again and again, the knee, the uppercut, the hook that has broken jaws, and the water flows around all of it. Not blocking, not clashing. Redirecting an avalanche with the lightest touch of an open hand. The giant had spent his entire life training for other giants. He had never in his life fought a ghost, someone who refused to give him a target, who turned all that overwhelming power into wasted motion, someone who used the giant's own strength against him and gave him nothing solid to strike. But do not mistake this for something easy. Do not imagine for 1 second that the water was safe, because it only takes one punch. A single clean strike from those hands, and the fight, the legend, all of it ends in an instant. The smaller man knew this better than anyone. Every heartbeat inside that range was a gamble with his own life. One misread, one slip of timing, one moment of hesitation, and it would all be over. And yet he stayed calm. He did not survive by being tense or bracing or fearing the punch, because panic is the fuel the storm runs on. So he refused to feed it. Round after round in the theater of the mind, the giant begins to learn what every great master already knows. He learns that size is only an advantage against a man who stands still and lets you use it. He learns that power thrown at nothing does not harm your opponent. It exhausts you, drains you, empties the tank with every furious miss. He learns that the hardest man in the world to hit is the one who has made himself formless. And slowly, terribly, the avalanche begins to spend itself, chest heaving, arms growing heavy, and the water never breaks, never tires, never stops flowing. This is why the question has lived for 50 years, and will live for 50 more. Not because we know the answer, because we never will. Every honest voice will tell you a clean punch from that giant might have ended it in a single second. That truth is real, and we will not pretend otherwise. But the question survives because it is the oldest question there is, dressed in flesh and bone. The immovable force against the unstoppable calm. Because in the end, this was the entire philosophy of Bruce Lee, made real in the most extreme test imaginable. Become so complete in yourself, so calm, so formless, that your opponent's strength has nothing left to hold on to. The storm rages to destroy. The water moves only to endure. One burns bright and burns out. The other flows forever. Be the storm, and you may win 1,000 fights. But be water, my friend, and you will never truly be defeated at all.